Hi, boys and girls. The purpose of this video is just to kind of walk you through the questions that are going to be on your 5-2 quiz. I'm not going to do them for you because that would make it too easy, but I will give you some suggestions and point you in the right direction. Okay. Question number 1 looks like this. I could be blocking part of it. Okay. Complete the function table for y equals x or 3x plus 5. Well, they've included the rule column here, which isn't always the case, but they're starting you out easy. All right. They're showing you that what you're doing is you're taking 3x plus 5, and every time you're going to take the x value they give you and substitute it for the letter x. All right. So here, this one, you would go 3 times 1 and then add 5. Whatever your answer is, you would write it here. Same here, you would go 3 times 2, whatever your answer is to that, add 5 to it, and write that number here. Okay, just continue doing that for all 4 of those numbers. This is question number 2, same setup. All right, the only difference is now you're working with 2x minus 1. So you will substitute 0 for x, you'll go 2 times 0, and then subtract 1. Here, 2 times 1, subtract 1. 2 times 2, subtract 1, 2 times 3, subtract 1. Each time you write the solution or type the solution in this box. Question number 3. Now they've gotten rid of the rule column, all right? So here's where you might have to make your own rule column, or definitely want to have some paper and pencil handy while you're doing this quiz. What you're working with here is 1.4x plus 3. That's your expression that you have to substitute. And they want you to substitute 0 for the x. So you're going to do 1.4 times 0 plus 3. That would be the answer to this one. And then you will have 1.4 times 5 plus 3. And that would be the number you put here. And then you would have 1.4 times 10 plus 3. And here you would have 1.4 times 15 plus 3. Now, because they're giving you a decimal in the problem, there's a better than average chance that you might have decimals in your answers. For this one, it does not say to round at all. So if you arrive at a decimal solution, make sure you type the whole solution in, including the decimal. This is question number 4. Same kind of thing. There's no decimal for this one. You're working with negative 4 times whatever x value they give you. In this case, it's negative 3 minus 3. Now, this is a lot of negativity here. You might, if you're not great with negatives, you might want to whip out your calculator at this point to make sure that you end up with the correct answer here. Each time, I'm going negative 4 times the number they gave me for x, and then minus 3. You'll want to do the multiplication first because, of course, PEMDAS, multiplication comes before subtraction. Okay? Writing each of the answers in these boxes. This one's a little tricky. It's got a fraction in it, but they've done you a solid because each one of these inputs will result in a whole number, not a fractional number. So you're going to go negative 2/3 times negative 3 plus 4. Okay. For this one, negative 2/3 times 0 plus 4. And this would be negative 2/3 times 6 plus 4. And this would be negative 2/3 times 9 plus 4. I would highly recommend you use a calculator unless you're really great at fractions and negatives. All right, so this is question number 6. This has some drop-down boxes, and it's a word problem. So let's talk about this one. It has 2 parts. Part A is the drop-down boxes, and Part B is complete the function table. Well, for Part A, it says, Martin's family is driving to the beach for a vacation. The total trip is 680 miles, and Martin's father averages 60 miles per hour on the trip. The distance remaining, d, is represented by the function d equals negative 60h plus 680, where h is the number of hours since the family began driving. Okay, so right here is our equation. D equals negative 60h plus 680. This is the equation we're going to use for part B when we fill in this table, okay? But for these drop-down boxes, they want to talk about what kinds of input values can you select that would be reasonable. Well, you got to keep in mind, H is the number of hours since the family began driving. Okay, so could you drive negative hours? Probably not. Could you drive positive hours? Of course you could. Could you drive for part of an hour? Sure, you could drive for half an hour or a quarter hour. So this first sentence says, only blank numbers make sense for the input because you cannot drive blank hours, okay? So these are your choices for this first box. Only positive whole numbers, that would be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Only negative rational numbers, that is negative numbers that can be fractions or decimals. I think we've already decided you can't drive negative hours. So the only possible correct answers here are positive whole and positive rational, okay? Positive whole numbers is just whole numbers, just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hours. Positive rational would include 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, or quarter hours, or even decimals, very small decimal hours. So I'm kind of thinking you probably want to go with this one because you cannot drive negative hours. It does make sense to use blank numbers because you can drive for part of an hour, okay? This box here, this one here, you have a choice for positive or negative. It says you cannot drive positive hours or you cannot drive negative hours. I think you know which one goes there. It does make sense to use negative numbers because you can drive for part of an hour, or it does make sense to use fractional numbers because you can drive for part of an hour. Only one of those really makes sense in that sentence. All right, so with these drop-down boxes, it's really helpful to read the whole thing and just leave blanks first and then go back and see what goes in them. Now here you're using the expression negative 60h plus 680, all right, to fill these in. So the first input is 0, so you would do negative 60 times 0 plus 680, just like we did in the previous problems. For the second one, you would put negative 60 times 0.5, that's a half an hour, plus 680, and so on and so forth. Okay. Uh-oh, what'd I do now? Go away, you. I don't want that. This is question number 7, all right? This basically gives you an equation right here. This is your function. You're going to substitute these numbers for x, put these solutions here. But then they want you to graph the problem. They want you to graph the answers. So your first time, let's see, you would put 1/2 times x, which is negative 4, minus 3. So I'll do the first one with you. Half of negative 4 is negative 2. And negative 2 minus 3 is negative 5. Okay, this is an xy coordinate point. It's the point negative 4, negative 5. All right, so you would come over here and go negative 4, negative 5, and you would put your first point there. Okay, so it doesn't take a genius to figure out that since this program makes a line with 2 points, that you only need 2 of these to draw the line. But in order to get part A correct, you do have to fill out all of the blanks, okay? So you would do what we did here with each of these numbers and then graph 2 of them, any 2, doesn't matter which 2 you pick, to create the line for part B. And question number 8, all right, this is a multi-select question, okay? The air temperature decreases about 5 degrees for each increase of 1,000 feet in altitude. So the temperature goes down 5 degrees every 1,000 feet that you go up a mountain. If the outside temperature at ground level in a certain location is 68 degrees, then the air temperature y is represented by the function y equals negative 5x plus 68, where x is the altitude in thousands of feet. Which of the following sets of numbers would be appropriate input values for the given situation? Okay, what does x stand for? That's what you have to figure out. X is the altitude, okay? So if we're talking altitude, we could have 1 mile above sea level. We could have 1.5 miles above sea level. We could have 100 feet above sea level. We could have 100.3 feet above sea level. So I'm thinking what we're wanting here is positive numbers, but we can use rational numbers. Rational, remember, means fractions and decimals. Okay, which of the following numbers would be appropriate? Okay, select all that apply. Could you use whole numbers? Could you say this is 1 mile above sea level? Of course you can. Negative numbers. You cannot have negative above sea level. You can have negative below sea level, but not above sea level. Integers. Integers include negative numbers. So you want to be careful with that one because we've already said you can't do above sea level with negative numbers. Positive numbers are good because all above sea level numbers are positive. Rational numbers are also cool because rational numbers are fractions and decimals. You don't have to go a full mile above sea level. You could go 1/2 mile above sea level. And F, only 0. I see no way in which the only number we can use in this problem is 0. So I would not pick that one if I were you. All right, question number 9. Certain species of bamboo can grow up to 3 feet per day. I want one of those. You know, it would really put Seymour to shame if I had a plant that could grow 3 feet per day. Suppose Martina transplants a stalk of bamboo that is 7.5 feet tall. The function h equals 3d plus 7.5 represents the height h of the stalk d days after being transplanted. Martina will measure the new height after 3 days and after 1 week. How much taller will the stalk of bamboo be 1 week after being transplanted than after 3 days? Now, you're going to want to be careful with this one. All right, I'm going to write down in this box. Obviously, this is just where you would only put the answer. And notice they put feet taller here. So all they want is a number in this box, nothing else. But I'm going to use this space to write. The equation they've given you is h equals 3d plus 7.5. And they've said we want 1 week and 3 days. So you want to know how tall it was at 3 days, and you want to know how tall it is at 1 week, and you want to subtract the difference. Okay, so here they're saying d equals 3, but they're trying to trick you because what is d equal to in this case? Not 1. How many days are in a week? There's 7 days in a week. So this is d equals 7. Over here, you would go 3 times 3 days plus 7.5. And then here, you would go 3 times 7 plus 7.5. You figure out what this is equal to. And then to answer the question, you need to subtract the smaller one from the larger one, which would be this one from this one, to figure out how much taller it is after 7 days than it would be after 3 days. And that is the number that you type into this box. This is the last question on the quiz. An electrician charges $20 for service calls plus $24.50 an hour. The function, we're going to need that, C equals $24.50, that's what he charges per hour, plus $20 for him to drive out there. C is the total cost, and H is how many hours it takes him to do it. If Caleb hired the electrician for 2.4 hours, and Josephine hired him for 3 hours, how much more does Josephine have to pay? Well, you use this expression here, 24.5 times the hours, 2.4, plus 20. And this will tell you what Caleb has to pay. Over here, you're going to do 24.5 times 3 hours, plus 20. And that will tell you how much Josephine has to pay. For the final answer, you want to subtract. You want to take Josephine minus Caleb, the bigger number minus the smaller number, and that will tell you how much money. So they've already put the dollar sign here. You don't type the dollar sign. You just put the number that represents how many dollars more Josephine has to pay. If it's $2.50 or $15.75, you just type 15.75. No hours, no dollar signs. Okay? All right. Well, I think that should get you through this quiz, and you should all be very successful with it. However, if you should miss a problem or more than one, and you would like to have a second shot, remember I will always reopen any quiz one time for you to make corrections. All right. Good luck, and I hope you do great on this.